Hello there, lovely. Welcome to this training lesson. And today I want to give you a little bit more of an overview of the human design chart. So in case you are more new to human design, or you haven't had a reading yet, or you just want to have like an overall refresher and understand what it's like or where to find what, I'm going to help you today to figure out what's where in the chart, and then you can go and explore from there. So it's not exactly like a reading, but it's kind of what I do in my readings with my clients, or have done in the past. I haven't been doing so many readings, but yeah, it's still fun work. So let me share my screen with you so that you can see what we're talking about. So this is my chart in a software called Genetic Matrix, which I love using. And when you pull, if you don't have a paid account, and a paid account is not, it's very affordable, not very expensive at all. But even if you make a free account, you can make a free account. You'll get a little less information, but you'll also get some really helpful information. It might not have all these parts, but it'll have the significant parts, and I'll tell you what you need later as well. So we're going to start looking at all the different pieces. So depending on which software you use, the left side here might look completely different, or you might just get like this part and a little explanation underneath. But in reality, it's all kind of the same if you know what you're looking at. So first of all, we have here in the middle, this is the body graph. This is where you see in all these centers and all these gates and channels, what you have defined and what you have undefined. So very technically speaking, undefined is just something that's white, and open is something, for example, like my will center or my root center, where I don't have any activation at all. They would be considered open, versus my other white centers. They all have a gate either here or here or here, or these guys, they all have gate activations, so they qualify as undefined, but they're not completely open. This is a technicality, but I just wanted to mention it because a lot of people get confused about this. So the names of these centers, this here at the top is the head center. Then we have the ajna, throat, G, identity or self. The little one here to the right, the triangle, is called the will or the heart. Even though these two together make the heart chakra, and this is kind of technically more the heart chakra, because it's your center of love and self and direction and identity and all that stuff. And then here you have your solar plexus. Here we have the solar plexus. Here we have the sacral, which we as projectors all have undefined or open, so white. The spleen to the left, and the spleen and the solar plexus together, they make the solar plexus chakra. Then the sacral is the sacral chakra, the root is the root chakra. So it is connected to the chakra system, but not exactly the same. But so just so you know that in your body, where to look and feel for things. So then in the middle here, you can see whether you have a gate or a center or a channel activated, but you can't see in which placement. So on the sides here, left and right, right is the black, that's the time when you were born. Personality, it's called also sometimes soul or the conscious side. And then on the red side here, this is 88 days before your birth. It's called design, unconscious, or body oftentimes. And a lot of people say it represents kind of your epigenetics, your ancestral lineage, your physicality, oftentimes, obviously, what you're unconscious of. So in human design, this makes a lot of sense. In astrology, I haven't used it much, just because in astrology, I always use the data from the birth time. And I like to use the Western astrology. I find it very accurate for me. I know a lot of people also like Vedic or other things. So here we're going with the Western part, but you can switch to all kinds of things and probably find some truth in anything, in all the things. There's also sidereal, which human design, which is just attuned to the Vedic placement of the planets. So if you're more into that, you can see if your software shows you a sidereal, but I don't want to confuse you too much right now, because in sidereal, I'm an emotional generator, which I do resonate with that in some ways, but I feel like very much so I'm a self-projected projector, and that seems to work very fluidly for me. So next, what we have here down on the left and the right, these number rows, they are also your gates, but here you don't just see if you have them activated or not, but you see in which planetary or solar placement they are or were when you were born, or like I said, on the left 88 days before you were born. So here you can see also if you have a gate more than once, right? For example, I have my 35 in my conscious sun, but I also have it in my conscious Jupiter. So it's a very important energy for me. I have the 5 grounding me in the earth, but I also have it spiritually activating me in my Neptune, right? So you can see then, you can count which gates, or the 3, like the innovator, I have in a bunch of places. Oh, here's why it's only a couple places, because I'm going to also activate the Chiron view. Chiron does not activate a gate. I will get into that later. But so my Chiron, I have the 3, then I have the 3 and the 3. So being an innovator and playing is like a big thing in my life as well. Okay, so on we go. Count how many times you have each gate, right? And mark down the ones that you have more than once. So for example, the 33, I also have 2 times in my Saturn. So that's a big energy for me as well. The 48 I have twice in my Pluto. So you will, or the 42 or the 32, I also have them twice. So whatever you have more than once activated here on the left and on the right, and you can count them together, that will be more of a life theme for you. So then you can go into your favorite human design book or into one of the resources from the resource section and just see what are these energies about, right? Or into the gene keys if you want to go really deep, which is always lovely. But I find it helpful to have a short resource that's faster to read. And then for car drives or for longer readings, the gene keys, either an audio book or reading it. So next, we have the incarnation cross. So you will find that written somewhere on your chart, depending on which software you use. Here it is, for me, the right angle cross of consciousness number 2. So this is very much, especially around the time that I'm born. So my son, for example, is born 3 days after me. And because the 35 was still in the sun, on the, I'm 2nd of June, he's 5th of June. So on the 5th of June, the 35 was still in the sun. So he has the 35 and the 5, and he also has the 63 and 64 in the same position, because that's very much dependent on every 3 months, you kind of get the same incarnation cross. So people who are born 3 months before or after me, or 6 months before or after me, they have the same name of the cross of consciousness, but a different number. So that's how I know, like, people around my birthday, that's, you know, not just because they're Gemini, we get on usually well, but also because they tend to have the same cross of consciousness. So we see things very similarly in that way. We love everything consciousness expanding and that kind of stuff. So the cross of consciousness, or not just that one, your incarnation cross, is made out of these top 4 gates. So your conscious sun and your conscious earth, and your unconscious sun and your unconscious earth. These 4 together make your incarnation cross, which is one of the strongest energies in your chart. It really determines like what you are here for, what you are radiating out, right? So there's more other details in the chart that we'll look at in a little bit as well. But the incarnation cross, this is like the sun and the earth in your chart, and they're very, very strong energies. So they'll be very familiar to you. And they're the couples here, the earth and the sun, and the earth and the sun on this side. If you know a little bit about gene keys, you will know they're the complete opposites. So 35 and the 5 are opposites, or pair. They're a pair or a couple, and 63 and 64 are as well. So that means that their shadow expression really enforces each other. So for me, for example, the shadow of the 5 in gene keys is impatience, and the shadow of the 35 in gene keys is hunger. Always being hungry for more, never having enough, blah, 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 that kind of stuff, that old energy of mine. So when you're impatient, you often are even more hungry, and then they reinforce each other. And then you're kind of trapped in this infinity loop of the shadows reinforcing each other. And the same on the unconscious side, because they're also a pair. And they also really reinforce each other well with the gifts. So the gifts, if you can tap into one of the gifts, it'll make it much easier to live the higher expression or the gift of the other one as well. Because our idea really with human design, or with anything, but human design is just really an archetypal chart of energies that you can live either to a low expression or a high expression. And the more we decondition, the more we move toward our higher self, the more we will also move toward living the highest expression of our chart. So that's why it's so important to know the low expression or the shadow, and the high expression or the gift. In gene keys, there's also a thing called the city, which is kind of like what I like to call the Buddha energy of the gate or the gene key. But even if you can just live in the gifts of most of your gates and channels, that is a beautiful thing. And another thing to mention is we all have all of the chart. So what you have defined or colored in is what you have consistent access to. What you have white, you're meant to become wise about in exchange with the outer world. So me having no activation in my will center doesn't mean I don't have any willpower. It just means that I don't have internally a push from willpower, but I needed to get wise about my willpower in exchange with people, circumstances, events, and stuff like that. So I can now use my willpower really wisely. The same with any other undefined center or gate or channel. It's not that I don't have them, it's that I have to become wise about it. It's not something that I'm naturally born with. So it's kind of more like a neutral zone, if you want to say, but you have all of the chart. But we want to look at also the things that you have defined, because that's where you find your innate gifts and talents and your challenges and your expressions and all of these beautiful things. So that was the incarnation cross. So I want to invite you to really look at your sun and your earth gates, because your sun is your outer expression into the world, and your earth gate is what grounds you. So the 5 is habits, rhythms, patterns, and really having my daily little rituals and my morning routine and my flow in the day really, really grounds me. But then the 35 is all about adventure and experience and the unknown, right? So that is really something that I want to put out in the world, that I do, that I love doing, that expands me here in my Jupiter as well. But it's a thing that I can only do and enjoy and really master, taking my clients on experiences in my programs, for example. But I can only do that when I'm grounded in my routines, as you know, as ironic as that might sound, but that's just how it goes. We're all a mixture of conundrums, right? So really expect, as you explore your chart more and more, to be surprised that things are not always on the same wavelengths. You'll find a lot of energies that are contradictory in your chart, and that is normal because every human is complex and we are all made out of contradictions. And when we learn how to embrace them all and really enjoy them and see where they are applicable in which part of life, then that's when we can really feel free and live how we're meant to live. So you can pause this at any time, of course, if this is fast and you have notes to take. So the next thing, but you already know this, for example, most likely is like, what authority do you have? I'm a self-projected projector, and this is because I have the G and the throat defined and none of these others. If I had any of these two defined, I could also still be a self-projected projector. But if I had this defined, then I'd be a will projector, emotional. If I had this defined, I'd be a splenic. So they refer to the authorities in the authority video that I posted in here, so that you can know more and learn more about your authority if you want. Then the next thing we have is the profile, which really will determine kind of your personality a little bit. So the profile can be found from, you see the decimal points here behind the 35.1, right? These two have the same dot behind them. So it goes from .1 to .3. That's my conscious and my unconscious profile numbers. And that's how it lines up from the right to the left. So if you're a 2-4, you'll have a decimal point 2 here and a 4 here. So there's another resource in here that explains more in detail about the profiles, but you will know that this is very important also for business. So that's why we go in it deeper somewhere else. I just wanted you to know where to find this in the chart as well. And then you will see all the other gates that you have activated. They have numbers and decimal points behind them too. They have profile numbers as well. So if you want to go really, really deep, you can look, for example, for your Mercury. For me, I'm meant to become a role model in feminine energy, right? So that's basically what I'm doing with my projector business and just living as that example, right? But most important are the top ones, which make up your main profile. Yeah, so that's that part. And the next thing I want to walk you through really quickly, just so you have an overview and understanding. There's also a resource in the resources section where it will tell you what the planets and stars and nodes and planetoids mean, so that you can puzzle this together for yourself a little more if you want to, and you like journaling, for example. So just so you know which planet is what and what to expect from them. So like I said, let's just go on one side because they're the same on each side. The top one is the sun. So that's the energy you were born with when the sun was up, or the gate that the sun was in when you were born, rather. Then the opposite of that is the earth. Then right underneath this shoe horn that is open at the bottom is your north node. That's the energy your soul is headed toward, kind of in the second half of life, or what your soul really wants you to learn, the gifts it wants you to open up to. Then the other way around shoehorn with the opening at the top, that is your south node. That's kind of the energy that's familiar and natural to you. That's what youth to midlife you've already like gotten really, really good at, maybe even in previous lifetimes. Youth to midlife kind of area, something that you're moving a little more away from while you're moving more toward the north node. Then the next one is the moon. This is what represents your emotions, your intuition, also your habits a little bit. It's also what drives you, why you do what you do. And then here, this little handheld mirror let's see if I can make this a little bigger. Yeah. The handheld mirror here with the little ears on top, that's our little Mercury. That's one of my favorite friends. Also, Gemini is ruled by Mercury, so I'm very attached to this. But this is also what you're here to talk about. We use this a lot for messaging and marketing as well to understand. There's another video about this. It's the communication planet, what you're here to communicate about and share. Communication, intellect, and logic. And then the next one under that, the handheld mirror without the little ears, that is Venus. This is all about love, what you value in love and relationships, love, beauty, relationships. I have two different sheets that I'm looking at here, just to give you the complete picture. So really what you value. For men, I've read ones that their Venus is what they really love in their feminine partner. For my partner and me, that seems to be true. But yeah, you can play with that yourself. Hold on. Just had to eliminate a beep. Then the one after this, the Mars, that's basically a lot of doing energy. Mars is all about action, desire, passion. Mars rules Aries. Aries is very fiery. That's why it's also connected to immaturity or youthful lessons that you may have had to work through. And also, just so you know, the Mars on the unconscious side, in our body side, that is very often, if we just follow our intuition and our heart, what we end up doing as a job, right? As a job, or what we end up doing with my clients. For example, for me, that's the 13, changing the narrative for people. That's what I do a lot in my work with my clients. Then we have the Jupiter and the Saturn, but I'm going to tell you them the opposite way around. So we're going to talk about the Saturn first, because you cannot harness the gifts of your Jupiter until you are mastering the higher expression of your Saturn. And Saturn is known as the great teacher or the fatherly figure. There's a couple other fun words around it, but it's also a lot about discipline, responsibility, ambition, what you're here to learn, basically. So it's a big, big lesson, but for us projectors, it's also where we are stifling our visibility. So oftentimes when you look at your Saturn and the low expression of it, you will see that that is exactly why you're not being seen and recognized for who you want to be seen and recognized for. So really put a lot of focus on deconditioning your Saturn energy so that you can be seen and recognized and not stifling your own expression anymore, because this is your great teacher. And then you can harness the blessings and the gifts and the expansion of Jupiter, because Jupiter is all about abundance, optimism, about opportunities, blessings where you receive rewards as well. So for me, how that shows up, because this is adventure and experience, the 35, oftentimes before a launch, I will go on a trip or on an adventure, which will really expand me and really open up my receiving and my abundance channels and the opportunities that come to me. So, but this didn't work until I deconditioned my Saturn in a much bigger way. And also, you might come across these energies again and again, especially when it comes to Chiron, which is our wounded healer, point of healing, or also it's also part of your life and spiritual purpose or calling, because this is oftentimes something in Chiron that we continue to peel away in different layers again and again. And this is also why you are so qualified to teach it, right? Whatever the energies are in your Chiron, look at them really, really in detail so that you know what a lot of your purpose, your spiritual your life purpose is to bring to people, combined with your message here, right? Your Mercury and your output into the world in your sun, which some people call the sun also in human design is your brand, because that's just how you're perceived, how you're known. So then down here, this friend is our Uranus, however you want to pronounce him. So the further we get away from the sun, the slower moving the planets become. And Chiron, like I said, it doesn't activate a gate like you see 27 here, and I don't have the 27 activated, but it still stirs up a lot of stuff in your life. It's because it's a planetoid and not a planet, but it's still very, very useful to know what your Chiron is. So then Uranus is more of a slow moving. You can see 3 months before my birth, all these planets were in the same position as they were on my day of birth, except in a different profile line. So here I have 44.5, here I have 44.1, but Uranus was still in gate 44 when I was born and 3 months before, or 88 days. So for Uranus, not 44, this is where you're different. This is where you get taught how to have faith. This is where you can really expect to be surprised by these energies. It's also a lot about rebellion, about your individuality, and about upheaval. So that could both, oftentimes these lower three, they're seen more as like generational themes. So you can see it's oftentimes a little more external than internal, but still you're carrying this energy. So your rebellion, your individuality, your unexpectedness, where you're different, is laying here in the wisdom of that gate. Then your Neptune is all about imagination, about dreams, also a little bit about delusions, about your spiritual theme, how you connect with spirit. So for me, my rituals and my daily habits are very much a way for me to connect with spirit. But it's also your veiled spiritual connection or work purpose. So that's also what I do a lot with my clients, is teaching them new habits and, patterns and rhythms in line with, exchanging their stories for better ones and belief systems. So you can also look in your Neptune for that. It's pretty exciting. And then last but not least, we have our dear Pluto, our expansion challenge, oftentimes also generational, where you grow and evolve and transform through release and rebirth. So it can also be a lot more challenging sometimes, but it's not usually as present in people's lives as, for example, the Chiron and the Saturn. And the Saturn screams the loudest at Saturn returns around 29 years old, and then again 29 years later, or 30 years old, 30 years later. But anyways, Pluto, it's all about transformation, power, and mystery. So it's very much the transformation comes from the death and the rebirth. So check out all these energies, what they mean for you in your chart. And then last but not least, what I want to show you, but what we also have a different document for to go deeper into, because it's really, really helpful for business, is also your motivation. And if you don't have a paid genetic matrix account, but you create a free account, you can get this by just getting a free account and then clicking on your personality, which is just what will show you the black side, which will also show you the motivation. So for me, that's need. The transferred motivation is fear, and you will learn what that means when you go into the documents for it. But transferred motivation basically means that when I'm in my not self, I think that I should be motivated by this, but it usually doesn't feel good. So then I know, so I can come back to my motivation of need. So this is it for now. You can see in my soul side, I'm a reflector, which I feel very much when I put my intention on that. I'm very much a soul mirror for my clients. I love that. And in my body side, I'm a self-projected projector because the red 13 and 33 connect as a channel. So this is just a little nugget on the side. So this is it for now. So you know where to find what in the chart and what it all means. And if you have more questions for that, bring it to the Q&A calls or post it in the group. Let us all assist each other, and I'm happy to help at any time. And I'll see you for the next training video. Love you. Bye.